Yeah, a new life, it's really an opportunity to learn about our life because it really empowers, it emphasizes many things. If I, as a grown up, was more or less in control of life, knowing how to respond to things, suddenly with a young baby, there are many situations where you don't really know how to behave, you don't exactly understand, everything's new, and it's really pressuring. And one of the things is that from the very first moment the baby's born, even though that we, the parents, want for things to be good and pleasant and for the baby to feel good all the time, from the very first moment, the baby experiences pain, pressure, he gets shot, blood's taken from him, and as much as I want to protect him and keep him, unfortunately, there are also unpleasant experiences. And later on, when you get home, they start with gas problems and they suffer. And we all the time say that we're undergoing a process within nature. And the question is why, from such a young age, our life is accompanied with such suffering, and especially human beings. Because if we look at other creatures, as if they don't suffer that much, but they're more suited to nature, to this world, and man, yeah, he's really born for suffering. It says so, you shall bear children in anguish. Yeah, it says that about the mom, but it's also about the children themselves. There's a well-known problem with growth until the body becomes accustomed to the air of the world and can absorb food and digest it correctly. In short, it needs treatment. If we look at animals, how everything's arranged correctly and they don't eat anything, and they don't have any equipment or special foods or diapers or nothing. And here, it's an entire industry working around the baby, and you really can't say that it's exaggerated, even though that a few years ago it was much less. But when there's more today, as much as I look at the world, that there are many redundant things in it that we manufacture and build. But towards babies, you can't say that it's exaggerated. And still, we see how much they suffer. That part, that burden that falls upon the baby, that he has to overcome his connection with the new environment that he's born into. And this is something that you can really barely digest. The baby suffers one way or another. And where does it come from? Why did I previously say that it's in contrast to animals? One might say that for them it's something natural. And also, they give birth to 5, 10, even 20 offspring, so a few of them die, and it's normal, like with fish and on the animate level. Whereas by us, it's a problem. And again, I'm saying that it's not a problem that is a result of the lack of the compatibility of our body, of the baby's bodies that are born to this world, but it's the problem of our broken soul. And its correction is something that we undergo through bodily suffering on several stages. And therefore, when I personally look at a baby and the baby's suffering, and also at the kind of suffering when a person's about to die, so in these periods where he is as if helpless, without any compatibility with nature, then we see that here there is the matter of pure suffering that results from the correction of the soul. And regardless of how much we work at it and build around the baby different things that will help him to really have the right response to every need of his, still, nature will evoke suffering in him, different torments, illnesses, and we know that kids have illnesses of their own, and many of them, and it's a complete science around it. And this all stems as a result of the corrections of the soul. Later on, we were supposed to undergo the corrections of the soul consciously, with understanding, but we're not doing it. We're still falling behind in this respect. And therefore, a vast part of the suffering that a baby undergoes, it's because we later on don't correct the soul, meaning the connections between us, the connection of bestowal and love. And therefore, it falls upon us, like in life in general, where we're constantly running away from troubles and problems on each and every step, going from one trouble to the next. And this is something that you can also see on babies, and on them you can see it in a very clear way, because as if there's no reason for the baby to suffer. So why does he suffer? Because this suffering is considered as the correction of the soul. The suffering corrects the soul? Yes. What does it mean? It means that that suffering which he experiences as a result of being in the world in states which are completely egoistic, they also become a part of the correction of the soul. Like in the past, Kabbalists, they used to behave according to the condition, as it says in Masechet Avot, eat a little bread, drink a little water, sleep on the ground, and blessed are you in this world and in the next. Meaning that people who wanted to correct their soul behaved this way, ate a little bread, drank a little water, slept on the ground, meaning living a life of sorrow, literally. And that's how it was in previous generations, up until the times of the Talmud, where the sages of the Talmud have already corrected the upper system of governance and providence, so that people, in order to correct their souls, no longer need to live a life of sorrow. But these stages of birth, growth, and during life also suffering and death, these are stages throughout which we nonetheless suffer. And this suffering is really pure. It's so with any suffering, but especially with this one, and it's closest to the correction of the soul, really tied to one another. How? What does it correct? If a person wouldn't suffer, then because the soul, it includes the light and the vessel. The vessel is called the desire, and the light, it's called the spirit of life within the desire. And we have to constantly become more sophisticated in our desires so that everyone will be ever more connected with each other. And then, accordingly, the light, a higher light of life, a better light of life will enter all of us. And we're not doing it, and therefore our desire, it remains egoistic. You're talking about grown-ups, and also babies. It doesn't matter. The desire is egoistic, having no connection with the other, no good connection with the other. And then how are we advanced towards a greater connection? By the accumulation of suffering in us, and then we're ready, or will be ready, if we're still not, we'll be ready to correct our connection with the other, just not in order to experience suffering.